Well, our debut championship season draws to a close in today's episode. It has ended the run of promotions, but remarkably, it is a top half finish and it looks like we're going to be as high as 7th. It's been a little bit easier than I anticipated, and that does worry me for the future of this save. But overall, we've got to praise these lads' performance and hope they can deliver on one last occasion. Yes, hello and welcome along to part 39 of Saving Southend with me, Daniel. We are back today for the final game of our debut championship season against Vince and Company's Fulham, who we've remarkably secured a finish above. We've got the best goal difference outside the top three. We've got 75 points from 45 games. We're above the likes of West Ham and Fulham in our first championship season. And look at Rotherham, who came up with us, are up in the top half as well. It has been a remarkable season. It's been very unchampionship-like with the ease that we've had getting up the table. I'm hoping that we can put in one last good performance, but next year it is going to be a bit of a change because we have got a big opportunity with a few players returning from their loans to move towards a more permanent squad, as we've done at previous levels as well when we've been progressing. We have also made our first steps towards improving the second tier of our team as well by bringing in young players from other clubs that are going to make a difference in the future. So we're going to meet a few players that we've agreed deals for, that Vasco Oliveira's spotted or our scouting team have as well. So if you're looking forward to all of that, seeing our youth intake and our final game against Fulham and season review, then please do put a thumbs up on the video. We will have a little look after at the squad because contractually, there's going to probably be a lot of changes this year. And of course, we'll be hoping for Jayden Danns to get a big deal, but he's just stopped scoring at the minute. So let's go and have a look at the schedule and start by seeing what's happened since you were last here. You were with me as that ridiculous unbeaten run finally ended against Forest. But since then, 10 points from 5 games, only 1 defeat, and results against 2 of the sides that are up in those playoff places at the minute. So we won 2-0 away at Sunderland thanks to Diblin and Presley, who has become an absolute star in the second half of this year. At Bristol City, or at home to them, sorry, we went 2-0 down after 20 minutes. Lewis Miley, the young Newcastle star in real life, he managed to get an England cap while at Newcastle, and now he's on loan in a championship. That's odd. But we came back and won 4-2, which is even more ridiculous. McKinstry, a Williams penalty. Lord knows why he was taking it. Hugill and Goodrum got the goals there. A 2-1 defeat followed at Derby, Sonny Perkins though getting his first for the club. A 3-3 draw at home to Luton with a rotated squad. 2 for Dylan Smith, who came into the team, and Tyler Diblin adding 1 as well. And then a 2-0 win away at Preston. Second half goals against the relegation battlers. We missed a penalty with Jack Morehouse, but both Parker and Goodrum got a goal apiece. So Fulham at home today is how we finished the season. A side below us with players that should be far superior. Calvin Bassey still there, Fabio Carvalho, Ethan Ampadu, Dean Henderson's their backup goalkeeper, and the likes of Iwobi, Pereira, Mateus Cunha, Harry Winks, Harry Wilson, all still part of the squad. Pedro Neto's there on 63 grand a week, about the same as our entire starting 11. It is a really bizarre situation, and I am finding it a little frustrating that we've competed this easily, but I'm going to reserve judgment until next year. We'll see how we get on. Let's go and have a look, though, at the youth intake because there are some more promising signs for the future in this one. It's not been the best youth intake we've ever had, but we have got a couple of good players in there with decent potential. And for the first time, a group of probably 3 or 4 who have got the ability to make it as professionals and EFL prospects. So that could be a way the club makes money in the future. We've got Dylan Knight as a goalkeeper who, short on positioning and composure, but everything else is pretty good technically. Jack Swift as a right back is okay. Great natural fitness and again in the future may well develop. Nicky Morgan, a centre forward with a bit of promise to be fair. Good finisher, decent pace and it's just the off the ball movement letting him down there. And then further down we've got Adi Viner, a left wing back who again might become half decent. But the big news comes to the players that we've pre-agreed. I'll show you quickly what I mean. We've got 4 17 or 18-year-olds coming in at the end of their Premier League contracts. If you go back to the first season, it was Jax Kingdon and Morehouse that were spotted by John Still, and they've become superstars for this club. And after a few years away from that trend, we've managed to find a few now, and we'll go and meet them as part of our season review after the final game against Fulham. For now, let's go and get into that one, see how we finish off in his championship campaign. Lots of other big games around us, but we're not taking part in one of them. It's a dead rubber between two sides that are virtually guaranteed position. Unless we lose by 17 goal swing to Derby, we're not going to be losing 7th. And Fulham can only go up or down a place, so not much really riding on it. Preston and Plymouth battling out at the bottom with Watford. That's probably the most fun battle for now. So let's get through the tactical meeting. Let's go and see what team we can pick. We're going to stick with a 4-4-2. I might bring 1 or 2 players in, but otherwise it'll be a fairly strong squad as we look to finish in style in this record season for our football club. Well, a couple of mini issues today and a little bit of room for sentiment too. So first of all, we've had some fatigue problems. So Aaron Presley not quite back from injury. Baggott struggling physically too. Russell Denny drops out for Smith, so we've got a backup centre half. I've made a couple of changes to bring in younger players or players that are in form or players that are our own. So Goodrum comes in ahead of Diblin, Ishmael in at left back for Parks as a young option, and Brookins in at right back because he had been playing better, but in fact, for this game, I'm going to switch that back around. It does mean that Jayden Danns gets a run out up front. I don't actually know when his last goal was. Let's go and have a look. Hasn't been for a while, I know that. Last scored 12th of February against West Ham. They're the only goals he scored since he rejected that 11.5 million move to Sunderland, which still frustrates me now. Hugo scored 1 in his last 5, but not been as fluent this half of the year. We've got a lot of young players improving, and for next season, we've still got a solid squad, but we're going to have to improve a few. A lot of loan players going back, and a few that probably aren't good enough. So today, I filled the bench with players who deserve a little bit of a send-off. Will Ferry is probably not going to be here next year. He's reached his level now, and he has contributed. He had one little spell in the middle of the season. He's still featured in 36 games, but he is going to probably be off. And for now, I just want to say a thank you and goodbye. The same for Sonny Hilton, who, to be fair, has been a lot more of a peripheral figure now. Since Goodrum came in, I know we've got to replace Diblin in the summer, but he's just not had the same impact. And again, you look at him, he's not a championship player. Been a great member of the squad, been a really important cog in the wheel as we've got promoted back to back to back. But it is going to be the end for him, I'm afraid. And then I look at the rest of it and some of the contractual situations, there might be a few moving on. And even people like Tyler Diblin, who we just say goodbye to after a really good year on loan. So this is the 11 in full. It is Daniel Rose between the sticks. He's back in form with Williams and Ishmael at fullback, Parker and Kwanzaa at centre half. Parker still out of contract at the end of the season. Still not agreed a deal to go anywhere yet, but lots of interest. We'll keep an eye on him. I'd love it if we could get him permanently, but I doubt it. Goodrum and McKinstry the wingers with McGregor and Gleeson in centre midfield. A goodbye to Gleeson, who rejected us to go to Hibs at the end of his contract, with Hugo and Danns up front. Can Jayden Danns score the goals to attract those big offers again? Because if we miss out on it after 11 million in January, I'm going to be absolutely gutted. Let's go and get through to the final league game of the season and see if we can finish our championship campaign in style. There are 4 players in for Fulham, a few youngsters in that team. You can see a few higher numbers, but also younger players like Lewis Hall. Satriano's come in, who's a good player. And they've got a lot of youth players on the bench as well. So maybe they're not taking it that seriously, which will help some of our stalwarts later on as they get their send-off and arouse innovation. For 3 successive promotions, I mean, I've sort of been there with Luton, with players who have contributed to 3, and they get such a send-off when they leave the club. And I think we're going to see the same here at Steve Tilson Park. Don't forget, it's a first season in a new stadium as well. It's been an incredible effort. But we normally finish seasons with a whimper. So this one, no shot after 15 minutes. Let's see how it goes. Well, not a single highlight for the first 35 minutes, but we return with Cameron Ishmael winning a tackle and surging down the left to Jayden Danns. He goes to the right back Williams and it's forward to Goodrum. He's made a real impact since coming in. Finds Williams on the overlap. Ball into Gleeson. Across to Jayden Danns. And he does end the goal drought. Yes, in a meaningless game and with an awful celebration. But will that be enough to attract the big offers again? Because I could really do with that 10 million quid. Might be a bit less now. He's only got 1 year on his deal, but I was so gutted when that didn't go through. And his form since has sort of proven why. As McKinstry on the edge. Great turn. Just wide of the post from him. 5 minutes to the break. It remains 1-0. And again, we're beating a very good championship team. As at half-time, I think a combination of the match stats and the player performances and ratings show you how good we've been here. I'd like to get a second if we can, and then maybe bring on a few of our sort of backup players that are going to be moving on. But for now, we're worrying about the defending, as Goodrum hacks a corner clear. Only as far as Harris on the right again though. Block back to Harvey on the edge of the box, and now Calvin Bassey. Out to Ibrahim, good touch. Williams does really well. But the danger's not gone. The cross is in. Harris is up. Parker heads away. This is a bit of a Fulham onslaught to start the second half. Ethan Ampadu finds Harvey. Back to Francis again. Fulham break away down the right. Cross in. It's gone through to Satriano. And he makes it 1-1 with a really good finish. And to be fair, they must have had a bit of a talking to at half-time, because they've come out a different team. And they deserve that goal based on the last couple of minutes. 1-1 with 50 minutes on the clock. We'll make some changes soon, because now there's no pressure about holding on. We're back at the hour mark, and we are getting to that stage now where we're going to bring a few on. Let's just see out this highlight first though, as Gleeson finds Williams. You know my superstition. Goodrum to Gleeson again. Back to Goodrum, over the top to Dans. Wins a flick down for Goodrum. On the volley, that was a cracking effort. Doesn't lead to anything in the end, but we will make changes now. McKinstry is going to come off, and we'll say, for the final time, I think, welcome to Will Ferry. We're also going to bring on Morehouse for McGregor in midfield. We're going to say hello to Sonny Hilton in place of Goodrum, who has been good today, to be fair. Hugill will be replaced by Perkins, with Dan switching over. And I think we'll save the last one a few more minutes, because so far, it's been a good performance, and I would like to avoid defeat if we can. As it stands, Preston are joining Oxford and Lincoln in League One. They at the moment are being beaten at Ipswich, and the other teams are doing all right. With 15 to go, I've got a choice, because Parker's got a little bit of fatigue. Hilton's come on and got injured, so I might just replace him again with Diblin. Not ideal for him, and if it is his final appearance, it's a sad way for it to go. But at least he can walk round and get a lap of honour on his way back off. As Ferry goes back to Ishmael again. Inside to Morehouse. Good turn on the ball. Drives away from two players and plays it square to Parker. We have got pending changes, so it could go wrong here. As Williams gets it wide to Hilton. Final contribution for him releases Dan's, but it's not good enough. It's going back into midfield with Ampadu. The voice is drifting away here. Carvalho to Adji, and now Bassey. Wide to Ibrahim in midfield. Oh, why do the pending changes always cause a goal? Ishmael to Morehouse, away as far as Hill. I'm going to cancel it, but I think it's too late. Let's just see what comes from it. The throat is cleared and Ampadu is forward towards Harris. Into Adji, must be offside. Notice given. Whenever there's pending tactical changes, the superstition is alive and kicking. Thankfully, it means nothing today. And we have brought on players weaker than we normally would. But it is going to cost us. In a game we have dominated, we're going to lose by 2-1. It's more important today, though, that we say goodbye to some legends, and we have been able to do that. But a bit of fatigue setting in at the end there. It was the Easter fixtures last week, and the 3 in a week and a half have caught up with us, as Harris gives the ball away to Ferry. Could we yet nick an equaliser? Final minute of 7 added on. Out to Diblin, into Dan's. Blocked to Ferry. What a finish this would be. Will Ferry has equalised in a final minute of the season. Oh, it could not have been a better story. We had to fall behind just to have that moment. Dan's adds an assist to his goal. But what a fitting way to finish the game. Will Ferry, the man who's been so important in his triple promotion, who was coming on after a few weeks of not playing for his final farewell at the club. And he has scored the equaliser in the 97th minute. You absolute legend. 3 full seasons, well, 4 full seasons now. Over 30 appearances in all of them. 5 goals or more now in all of them too. What an absolute legend. A brilliant player. And forever will be remembered fondly at this club. Let's have a look at the Hilton injury, which isn't too bad, so shouldn't affect him getting another club. We'll praise Jayden Dans, but hopefully he'll want to move away and get some interest again. His value's still going up, which is pretty remarkable. I don't want to know what his contract offer would be now. Jayden Dans shines as we fail to win, but we do get a point thanks to Will Ferry. Let's get ahead to the season review items and see what's happened on and off the pitch this year. And then we'll go and meet the 4 new players coming in and plan where else we need to improve this summer. Well, we're still awaiting the main end of season messages, but we have got our initial budgets already, and that is an important part of this club moving forward. We'll have a look at the finances in a minute and whether there's anything we can do on a facility front. Would have been a lot more if Dan's had accepted that move, but let's see what the budgets are. Oh, they're actually a bit less than previous years. The wage budget, I think, has gone up again. We'll check in a minute. The transfer budget, 1.65 million, which I probably won't spend. But when you consider these are our budgets at the minute, when you look at the fact that Jayden Danns now wants to earn about 12 to 15% of that on his own, when you look at the fact we could have sold him for 11.5 million, you realise how big losing out on that deal was. We have a look at the finances. We're actually black in the red financially. And if we look at the transfer budget and wages, yeah, it is a little bit higher, the wage budget. There's not going to be many increasing next year though, so that should allow us to invest a bit more. We are going to have to increase the scouting budget though, because I always focus off the pitch first. Let's have a look though at where the loans are. Where's the money going? We're paying 110 grand a month. That's probably why, as part of this stadium loan. And to build a smaller stadium makes it more frustrating. But we're in a good position, let's be honest about it. One Jayden Danns sale and all of this is solved. If we lose the loan players, if we don't get rid of him, could be a big rebuilding job this summer. Let's get to the end of season review messages, then we'll have a look at what we're going to do with this squad. Well, here we go then. As we continue to grow as a club, we of course growing the amount of casual and corporate fans we've got. Partly corporate because we've got a ground with more facilities for that now. But of course, overall, the percentage of our fan base that's hardcore is less than it was before. A massive increase in social media and in TV revenue this year though, and we're becoming an established championship team, which is an incredible effort. The club expectations for next year is to become established. They've really increased their goals because of what's happened. And look at this, informational objectives already on expanding the stadium, because we have been selling it out most weeks since we moved in. When they built it, they probably thought we'd be a League One club, and we're now in a championship. So helps us out on the financial front, but they're looking to move it on again, which is great news. We'll keep our eyes peeled for that. The rest of the messages though, end of season team meeting we'll do off camera. We've got to be careful with the squad dynamics because I've mentioned to you probably 3 or 4 of those that will be looking to move on. And they are people who are generally team leaders. If we get the offer for Danns, if we look at Hilton and Ferry who are in that group, Diblin who's on loan who's in that group as well, we could well end up losing a lot of that core, and we've got to be very careful that we don't overdo it. Parker, a team leader, moving out of his loan as well. This could be a pretty transformational and big summer for us, and might be the biggest risk of a slow start next year we've had in a long while, because it's definitely going to be a bigger churn overall. We'll worry about all the team meetings and that stuff in a minute. We'll save the money when it comes to the holiday destination. We're going off to the east of England, baby. There is no need for us to go elsewhere. We've got good promising progress from Goodrum, which is good to see. Players that are improving into their mid-20s now and just getting enough experience at this level to start to become a factor. But let's have a look at the squad and meet the 4 new players that are coming in, because first I've got to reflect on those who are moving on. We've got 6 loan players in the squad, all of whom are going back. We know Gleeson won't be returning. We're definitely not going to bother with Smith. And then the other 4, basically the Southampton boys plus Parker, are the ones we've got to try and get on a deal. Now, Parker's wanted by a lot of clubs and his wage demands were big last year. That's going to be difficult. The others will wait and see what happens. But then the biggest problem in this squad is it's the first year where I've not been able to extend everyone's contract and get them on 2 or 3 year deals because the wage demands have just got silly. And until we had that burst in mid-season where we knew we were going to be safe, we couldn't afford to take risks with the wage bill because we had the bank loan from the stadium. We didn't have Jayden Danns going out and now still don't. And it means that we've not been able to just push up the wage bill 20 grand a week because we were quite near the limit then. So we're going to have to make decisions next season based on who we can sign and what positions we end up being weaker, because we've got some squad players in there like Presley, like Baggott, like McGregor, who may end up still being needed or may end up being surplus to requirements in 6 months. And then we've got key players like Morehouse and Danns and Ishmael, who we don't want to lose for free. We don't want to risk losing a transfer fees for, but They're the type of players that want 15, 20 grand a week. And that's astronomical for a club of this size with this level of income at the minute. I know it's been mentioned in the comments a couple of times. Yes, generally 15 grand a week isn't a massive championship wage now for a first team player, but it is for a club of this size. It was for my club, Luton Town. It is for this Southend team. When you've only got 11,000 fans in, you haven't got big ticket prices, you haven't got big commercial entities. It isn't as easy as when you've got this modern arena with loads of commercial value. It is tricky. But the good news is we have got some key players tied down. Kwanzaa signed a much longer deal in the summer, as did Goodrum, Hugill, Williams, Parks, etc. and Perkins, who we bought in mid-season. So we will still have a few decent players at the club, just perhaps not quite as many as we'd hoped for. So it really does feel like a bit of a make or break summer. And maybe our overachievement has actually made some players a little greedier. And maybe we'll introduce some interesting players. I find it astonishing that we have got 3 successive promotions, then finished 7th in the championship with good young players with big potential. And there's barely been an offer for any of them. Jayden Danns is the only one that's had real interest this year. And I do find that a little bit strange, something we've never experienced before. You go back to the Hemel save in FM22, I mentioned it a couple of episodes ago. We had tons of interest in everyone, and we were getting offers galore in every deadline day, and it was almost a fear factor when we came back during a transfer window. Here we've not really had that, and the one offer we have had, while it didn't go through, was extortionate. So I'm interested to see how that develops and pans out over the summer. But for now, before we finish off, I've got to briefly introduce you to 4 new players coming into the club, and while these are not ones who are going to be ready for the first team yet, I'm looking at players who are at the level of a Ferry, of a Hilton, players that we're going to be saying goodbye to, who can be sort of second and third options in their position, but can also be stars for the future or maybe even go out on loan. So let's have a quick meeting of all of them. 2 attacking players, starting with Chris Lewis from Manchester City. He is a 17-year-old striker who's been doing okay at Woking. He and most of the others are going to need a little bit of work on their personality, but we've got the mentoring groups and training units we can do that with. Overall, though, a little bit of potential, and I felt worth bringing him in. I guess that deal we had with Nallo at the start of the save, where he came in, didn't play, and then we got the big offer, has sort of swayed me a bit. And I'm going to do it with a few more now and see if we get anything. If one of them goes for £1 million, it's job done, isn't it? We've got Thiago Paolucci, who is an 18-year-old Argentinian striker, youth international from Liverpool. No senior appearances yet, but what really appealed to me was his personality, his movement off the ball. He's got some of those mental attributes you wouldn't normally get in a youngster. And while technically and physically he's not brilliant, I still feel he's got the potential to be an asset. The other 2 are both defensive players. Micah Hutchinson is a very versatile one, determined but not the best personality overall. Very good physically, pretty good mentally. Not the best technically, but we'll work on him. And then the final one is Gohan Englefield. Great haircut from Arsenal, and he's a good young defender. Not really great as a centre-half because he's not composed and he's awful in the air at only 5'10". But as a right-back, potentially has a lot to give in the future, and maybe can be one of those we make a profit on. So all of those will come in and either be part of the backup squad or perhaps move on to other EFL clubs on loan. And when you add to that we have got players out on loan at the minute as well, which I'll go and show you very quickly now, it could be another opportunity for us to make money or to bring players into the backup team without investing. I'm looking at the likes of Sean Rose, who's had a good season in Scotland, Colin Driscoll, who's still got big potential and has improved with football in the second half of this year. And we've still got people like Nico Lawrence and Michael Dewaney, who thankfully many of are out of contract this year. We'd gone back down to League One, they could have been key players, but as it is, our quick development through the leagues has probably meant we're a little bit beyond their level now. But overall, a really good first season in the Championship, and certainly not much of the suffering we used to having in these saves. I've got to say, I found it a very comfortable year, and a worryingly comfortable one. We had a couple of sticky months, but from December onwards, it's been very much plain sailing. Where do you think we come next year, though? And how do you think we progress? Because this is going to be an interesting one with a big turnover in the summer. Do I go up to the next stage in the financial brackets with the wages? Because these players, they're probably overperforming at the minute. Are they good enough to do this in the long term? If I offer them 15 grand a week, the good players are then going to want 25, which is even bigger problems for us. Or do I go for the new squad, trust that we're going to get the right people in, and maybe move more of these on than we would usually do? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Let me know where you think we'll finish next season. If you did enjoy this one, please do put a thumbs up on it. A fitting end to a brilliant season with Will Ferry at the end of the Fulham game there. And let me know what you think of my squad planning for next year, because I think it's going to be a very busy window. We'll be back in a couple of episodes' time to find out the answer to that. But of course, in the meantime, we have reached the 5-year point in this save, which means it will be time for the first bookmark. That's where we stop off and have a look through the world of football, see who's been winning all of the trophies in Europe, in England, Scotland, all of the other UK leagues, and how everyone has been progressing. We'll see if there's any big shocks anywhere. If you want to stay up to date with it and find out, subscribe and turn that notification bell on. Between now and then, we'll be back with a head coach tomorrow. You can find yesterday's up in the eye above. Hope you had a lovely festive period and are looking forward to a happy new year. But for now, a thank you for watching as always. Find all the other links for the Twitch channel, the football podcast, and everything else in the eye above. And I'll see you back here in a couple of days' time for the first bookmark from the Southend United save.